Well, returning now to the studio with more on the rising tensions along the Gaza border is founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, Dr. Martin Sherman. Thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you.
All right, so my first question obviously is, Israel has now allegedly killed 58 Palestinians along the border and is getting a lot of flack for this use of lethal force. So, how do you see it?
Well, I think that Israel, of course, has both the right and the duty to preserve the borders of its sovereign territory. If you ask me, I think they've been very sparing with the use of force. I think that the fact that the protests are going on and on and on means that Israel has used too little force, because I believe that as soon as these demonstrations began to precipitate, Israel should have used overwhelming force and show the Palestinians that they cannot continue with this.
And you think that would have deterred more than, say, Hamas paying people to show up?
That depends on the amount of force you use. 20 years ago or 18 years ago, I wrote an article saying that we have to leave a traumatic scar on the collective Palestinian awareness, because if we don't, then we are going to have over a decade worth of a decade long of clashes. And I was wrong, because we've had much more than a decade. And I do not believe that there's going to be any consensual, because look what's happened since we left Gaza. When we left Gaza, the most ferocious or the most dangerous weapon that the Palestinians had was a Katyusha with a payload of 5 kilograms and a range of 5 kilometers. Now they have not only missiles with a warhead of 100 kilograms and a range of 100 kilometers. They have a maze of tunnels and naval forces and drones, etc., etc. Right. So unless you relate to the Palestinians as they relate to themselves, as a bitter, unrelenting enemy and not a prospective peace partner, you will never arrive at a policy that can ensure stability.
But let's go back to the idea of this PR war, because I know you've spoken at length in the past of Israel even putting in 1% of the budget towards PR. So just in the interest of positive PR, wouldn't it be in Israel's best interest to maybe scale back? Plus, if we take
what does scale back mean?
Take a note out of Rabin's book, and he says, break their bones but don't kill.
Well, I don't know actually what that means, because if only 100 of these Palestinian rioters broke through and took over a community nearby and butchered the residents and raped the women and razed the house, how would the country deal with something like that? But I'm talking about, when you're talking about public diplomacy, I don't mean public diplomacy directed to a specific instance. You need an ongoing public diplomacy campaign that defines and changes the context and presents the Palestinians as they really are, a cruel, brutal society bent on the destruction of Israel.
All right, well, I want to kind of change the topic just a little bit. Now, there have been some murmurings about Egypt possibly getting into some sort of agreement with Israel to maybe annex Gaza and incorporate them into Egypt. Now, I know that Egypt had Gaza for 20 years, from 1948 to 67. So, do you see this as a likely possibility or even a solution?
Well, the short answer is no. I don't think it's practical, and I don't think it's desirable. And, whilst I have a lot of esteem for Sisi, and I think he's one of the most important politicians in the world today, not getting nearly enough recognition or assistance, I think that there's certainly no guarantee that he will continue. I think there's a very good chance that eventually Egypt will have to abandon Sinai. And I say this because I think the elephant in the room... From
ISIS, you mean?
Right. Not only that, because I think the elephant in the room is Ethiopia. Ethiopia is building a huge dam on the Blue Nile, which may dramatically reduce the supply of water to Egypt. And to deal with that, I don't think Egypt will have the resources or the resolve to impose law and order in Sinai. And, for Sisi to do that, he would have to do certain things that are extremely difficult for him to do.
Like, so for instance, a lot more work than he's really got in him at the moment, than Egypt can afford to get into.
Like, for instance, dismantling the Hamas.
Right. So that would be, all right, well, thank you very much for coming in and talking with us, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you.